Fernando Tatis Jr. was once considered the face of baseball. Ever since making his debut back in 2019, he has taken the league by storm and has been one of the best players in the league. Not only was he great on the field, but he was also extremely likable. That was until this past season where Fernando Tatis Jr. may have very well ruined his reputation. And that's exactly what we're going to be looking at in today's video. I want to run through the timeline of Tatis's career up to this point, and towards the end I also want to go over whether I think his reputation is ruined or not. So with that in mind, let's get right into the video. First, let's rewind all the way back to 2015. A 16-year-old kid by the name of Fernando Tatis Jr. was ranked number 27 on the top international prospects list. And on July 2nd of that year, the White Sox signed Tatis Jr. to an $825,000 deal. But Tatis wouldn't be a member of the White Sox for very long. In fact, under a year later, on June 4th, 2016, Tatis Jr. was traded to the Padres in the infamous James Shields trade. In hindsight, I'm sure the White Sox would love to take this one back. This is universally known as one of the worst trades in Major League history. Now a member of the San Diego Padres, Tatis would tear it up throughout the minor leagues, ultimately leading to his call-up early in 2019. And at the time of his call-up, Tatis was one of the best prospects in all of baseball, as there were heavy expectations hanging on his shoulders. And he would impress in his Major League debut, which he made on opening day 2019, in which he went 2 for 3. Like I just mentioned, Tatis was one of the most coveted prospects in all of baseball, so even as he just turned 20 years old prior to making his debut, he had lots of expectations from day one. And just a few short days after making his Major League debut, on April 1st, Tatis would hit his first Major League home run. And Tatis would continue to dominate throughout his rookie campaign as he crushed all the expectations that were hanging over him. Not only was this kid really good, but he was really exciting as well. One notable play that Tatis made in his rookie campaign was on June 23rd, in which he tagged up from third base on a pop-up to the second baseman. This play was unbelievable, it was really fun to watch, and Tatis was blossoming into a star in front of our eyes. But unfortunately for Tatis and baseball fans across the league, his rookie season would end a lot earlier than expected. On August 13th, Tatis would be removed from a game against the Tampa Bay Rays with back spasms. Turns out Tatis had a stress reaction in his back, which would ultimately force him to miss the rest of his rookie season. And while he only played in 84 games, he left his mark. He hit .317 to go along with 22 home runs, 53 runs driven in, 16 stolen bases, and a .969 OPS. He would ultimately finish third in the National League Rookie of the Year voting, only behind Pete Alonso and Mike Soroka. And heading into 2020, Tatis was expected to take another step forward, in which he was looked at as one of the best players in the game. And he did exactly that, as in the shortened season he played in 59 games in which he hit .277 to go along with 17 home runs, 45 runs driven in, 11 stolen bases, and a .937 OPS. He finished 4th in the National League MVP voting and won the Silver Slugger Award over at shortstop. And one really notable moment from this season was on August 17th. The Rangers were hosting the Padres in a game that was extremely one-sided. The Padres were leading 10-3 in the 8th inning when Fernando Tatis Jr. came up to the plate with the bases loaded. The count would go in Tatis's favor as it was 3-0, and according to the unwritten rules, Tatis should not have been swinging on a 3-0 pitch up by 7 runs in the 8th inning. But of course he ended up swinging and smacking a grand slam over the fence, and the Rangers took exception to this. More specifically, their manager and Chris Woodward, who had a lot to say after the game. This would stir up a lot of controversy and would spread all across Major League Baseball, in which a lot of people would end up siding with Tatis. And with how good Tatis was playing at this point in the season, it would really get his name out there. A lot of people would start to side with him as the new kid on the block. He was sort of going away with the unwritten rules, which is, I think, a good thing. So while lots of controversy came up on this day, a lot of people would get to know Fernando Tatis Jr. and what type of player he was, and he was a great player for young kids to watch and to admire. Now fast forward a couple months to February of 2021, and MLB The Show announced that Fernando Tatis Jr. would grace the cover. Tatis, who was only 22 years old at the time, would be the youngest to ever be on the cover of MLB The Show. And it was at this point in time that I really think Tatis established himself as the face of baseball. We have to remember this is before Shohei Ohtani did all the ridiculous stuff he's been doing over the past 2 years, so at this point I think it's safe to say Tatis was the face of baseball. In just a few short weeks after being announced as the cover athlete of MLB The Show, Tatis and the Padres would agree to a 14-year, $340 million contract extension. And with a contract this big, there are going to be doubters out there, but at this point in time, there was really no one more deserving than Tatis of a contract this big. And while Tatis would battle numerous injuries throughout the 2021 season, he had the best season of his career. He played in 130 games in which he hit .282 to go along with 42 home runs, 97 runs driven in, 25 stolen bases, and a .975 OPS. He was named to his first All-Star team, finished third in the National League MVP voting, and yet again won the Silver Slugger Award over at shortstop. And heading into 2022, everything was looking up for Tatis. Yes, he did have a little bit of an injury history, but he was as good of a player as you were going to find in baseball. After all, the majority of his injuries in 2021 were very minor as he played through them at a very high level. Now fast forward to March 14th of 2022, and this is where the Padres would get some very bad news regarding their superstar. Tatis underwent a physical which ultimately revealed a fractured scaphoid bone in his left wrist, which would leave him out 2 to 3 months. It was awful news for a Padres team who was coming off a disappointing 2021 season, who had lots of optimism to bounce back in 2022. And it would ultimately come out that Tatis fractured his wrist from a biking accident. And this is something that the Padres front office did not like to hear, considering just a year ago they gave him a $340 million contract. So it was a tough blow all around, not only for Tatis but also for the Padres organization. Now moving forward to August of 2022, and Tatis was doing well in his rehab as he was heading off for a rehab assignment. All was going well until August 12th, where the baseball world would be shocked. Tatis would fail a drug test in which he would test positive for clostebol, which would leave him suspended for 80 games. And of course, this would end his 2022 season without a single game played. Not only would this suspension hurt Tatis on the field, but also off the field, as it seemed like at this point the Padres were getting sick of his antics. So for Tatis, things couldn't get much worse, considering just a year and a half ago he was considered the face of baseball. And at this point in time, Tatis really lost the trust of everyone. And fast forward to present day, and a lot of people still have the same opinions on Tatis. The fact that he tested positive for steroids and basically seemed to cover it up says a lot about his character. Now, I do want to mention, he stated that he used this cream for ringworm, which is a skin condition, but in reality, he most likely used it just to recover faster and get back on the field. And for me as a person, I know if I was in that situation, I would just own up to it. That's the best thing you can do to gain some sort of trust back. The worst thing you can do is lie about it. So at this point in time, Tatis and his reputation has pretty much reached rock bottom. As for his suspension, it will be up on April 20th of 2023. And at that point in time, he'll be 24 years old, which is pretty crazy considering the last time he played in the major leagues was when he was 22. As for his reputation, I don't think it's completely shot. If he comes back and plays like the player he was before the suspension, he's going to win a lot of people over. So I don't think he completely ruined his reputation. Yes, this suspension is going to be hanging over his head the rest of his career. People aren't just going to forget about it. But at the same time, he comes back and plays good, I think he's going to win a lot of people over. But if he does make one more mistake, his reputation is gone. So to sum it up, no, I don't think his reputation is completely ruined. I think he's going to come back and be very good and win a lot of people over. But at the same time, if he makes one more mistake, it is going to be gone. Let me know what you guys think of this whole situation down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.